The work begins, summer 1900. As fundamentally important as the Harriman expedition experience was for Edward Curtis, a meeting with George Bird Grinnell less than a year later radically changed the course of his life. No Anglo knew Native American culture better than Grinnell, one of the Harriman expedition scientists who had spent nearly half his life living among the West's High Plains native cultures. It was the Pawnee who gave the Yale professor the name Bird, as he arrived each spring and departed with the coming winter. Grinnell invited Curtis to meet him in Browning, Montana, in July 1900, at the eastern edge of today's Glacier National Park. From there they traveled by horseback more than 20 miles to witness the Piegans' Sundance ceremony. Grinnell's invitation had a purpose. Here was a great country, he wrote, in which still live hundreds of tribes and remnants of tribes, some of which still retain many of their primitive customs and ancient beliefs. Would it not be worthy work from the point of view of art and science and history to represent them all by photography? Grinnell believed that Curtis was that photographer. For Curtis, already considering a large photographic project among surviving Native American cultures, Grinnell's support and encouragement focused what became an all-consuming idea, a mission to create the North American Indians' 20 bound volumes and their 20 portfolios of loose photogravures. Riding across the sere, windswept high plains that summer day, Grinnell first led Curtis to the edge of a high cliff, and from there they looked down upon a circular encampment of some 200 teepees, more than a mile in diameter, holding hundreds of Piegan people of all ages, innumerable horses, wagons, and travois. Curtis was deeply moved. During the coming weeks, Curtis received a crash course from the experienced and knowledgeable Grinnell in how to respectfully work in Indian country, even if later he did not always follow Grinnell's best example. As Curtis later put it, to ask the Piegan any direct questions bearing on the subject of religion yields scant light. It is necessary to learn rather from the everyday life of the people. That was the heart of Grinnell's teaching. After weeks living among and observing the Piegan, eventually Chief Whitecalf, an elder who had grown to like Curtis, or at least tolerate him, allowed him to take portraits, but only if the sitters agreed. Curtis also offered to pay, as he had with Kik Isomlo earlier, and would throughout the coming years of work. While in Montana that summer, he took a number of images that he published 11 years later in the North American Indian, Volume 6. He was also allowed the honor of witnessing the 5-day-long Sundance, a rare privilege possible only because of Grinnell, but without his cameras. Curtis said of the experience, "Wild, terrifying, elaborately mystifying. I was intensely affected." Years later, and living among the Cheyenne, he witnessed another Sundance ceremony, this time with permission to photograph. Those images, also published in Volume 6, comprise an invaluable record of an ancient and deeply sacred ceremony, an essential part of the spiritual lives of several Plains tribes. Yet cruelly, the practice was by then outlawed by the U.S. government and its Bureau of Indian Affairs. On that trip with Grinnell, experiencing firsthand the depth and vitality of Native American culture and witnessing the Sundance, Curtis's life work had now begun in earnest.